Hello and welcome. My name is Lindy Fuller. What I enjoy most as a regional partnership manager with Summit Credit Union is sharing my passion for financial wellness. Today, I'm excited to share the Money Management Steps to Financial Success workshop with you. This is the first workshop in the Summit Financial Wellness series. So welcome UNC Rex Healthcare. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you have not already. I will acknowledge comments as we go, but again, feel free to unmute if you would like. This is a small group. And my goal today is hopefully you'll have at least one thing that you can feel as a valuable takeaway and start implementing in just the next few days that'll contribute to your financial success. So I don't know about you, but I'm not personally crazy about the term budgeting. It sounds boring or like you have to give up something. So instead of budget, I would rather call it a spending plan or maybe money management, but even better, a financial success plan. Whatever you do call it, it's really nothing more than having a plan to tell your money where to go instead of trying to figure out where your money went. Have we all been there before? We've experienced that third week of the month and we wonder, where did all our money go? If you're just spending without direction and hoping you have something left at the end of the month, you and I both know that almost never happens. So I hope that this is not a new concept, not spending more than you make. So let me help you take some steps to get into that financially successful path. We're going to start with commitment. That is our first and most important step. You have to commit and your family has to buy in. Everyone must be willing to participate, but especially your partner. One person can't make a budget work in a family where there are two or more spenders. If it's just you, that's easy, great. But to overcome a reluctant partner, you may require that they give up an allowance or take away a debit or credit card if they're not willing to work with you. Something you got to do. Second, we need to set goals. There has to be a reward for building a financial success plan. Whether it's saving money to go to Disney or buy a home, a car, go back to school, get out of debt, whatever the goal, pick something that's important to you. You have to set a goal to reach as a result of your plan because the plan works best when there's incentive. SMART goals are the most often met goals. They're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and they always have that by-when timed element. Putting goals in writing, preferably on a picture board or vision board, is what works best. Why not do a family vision board to incorporate each family member's goals? The visual helps keep what's important in front of you all, and it prompts accountability at the same time. It's about to be the new year, so that might be a family project you can do. Here are some examples of good examples of some goals. Notice that they all have that SMART goal element about them. Specifically, do you see how you could incorporate some of these? Rachel, Christina, or Wendy, in any of your goals? Maybe Paris is not a goal for you. They said yes, good. But certainly wherever is that preferred vacation spot. I mean, once we're allowed to travel anywhere we want again, right? That would be so nice. And to be able to afford to do it, do more than a staycation, as they say. Or maybe that down payment. That might be something that's not reasonable, $10,000 for everyone. but you got to think about what's reasonable for you. And then if it's not, adjust the time frame so that you can make it work right. Now we have had it asked, what prevents you from just constantly moving, right? That time frame. Well, you gotta stick to it. You only adjust when circumstances change. And then it may not be that time element that needs to be adjusted. It might be the dollar amount, or it might need to be some other aspect of the goal. But you're an adult, you can do it, you can make it work. Just keep those goals in front of you. Looking at our fourth step, this is what I refer to as the easiest step, because you know exactly where your money is coming from, down to the penny typically. But to be sure you're considering all the sources of income, think about, is there full-time, part-time, disability, SSI, all of the different sorts of income there can be. Don't skip anything. But do take into account that you want to put the net numbers in, not the gross, not that big number we wish we all actually had in our account each payroll check. You don't want to do that because you know that other necessary things are coming out of your check first. So also be sure not to include the once a year things like tax refunds, insurance rebates, or even gifts, bonuses. If you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure because those are in fact not guaranteed. Certainly not guaranteed to always show up when we want either. So what we're going to do now is let's do a poll. I'm going to, hopefully you'll all be able to engage in this poll. Launch it. Here we go. Decide what tracking method will work for you. Everyone is different. But you definitely want to choose a method that's going to be consistently working for you. We've got 4 out of the 5 participants so far. Let me just give it. Christina uses Quicken. Yes. Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and end our poll. That way we can see what the results are. So we had 2 that use spreadsheets or Excel, mobile app or online banking. Oh, you know what? And I had baking, excuse me, that I have to fix that. And if you're not tracking, that's okay. We're going to make sure you feel comfortable tracking moving forward. All right, so let's go to our next step. That's step 6. Step 6 can be the hardest step because you're trying to figure out where you've been spending your money up to now. That's difficult because you might not have accounted for every single penny at this point. So in order to set up a plan to tell your money where to go, you've got to know where it's going now. If you cannot recreate what you have spent over the last 3 or 4 months, you have to start tracking all your spending today. When do you start tracking your spending? Make sure you are listening.
Today.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes. So after about 2 or 3 months of tracking, that point you will have a pretty good concept of where your money's going now. And you have to track for that amount of time before you start to develop your spending plan, right? You're going to start to see some trends. What you want to do is start tracking all of the types of expenses that you have. Some are every week and they vary each time, while others stay the same each month. Then of course you're going to have those once a year or annual quarterly expenses. How do you budget for those? Well, typically You budget for those on a monthly basis by dividing by 12, but you have to take into consideration, when is that due, right? So might be a little strategy involved. Try not to pull your hair out. Tracking expenses is a very important step and ultimately the hardest part of developing your spending plan. Variable spending in particular is challenging because those expenses change drastically every month. Now, what kinds of things might we be referring to in a variable expense? Do you get gas and it be the same amount every time you fill up? What about the grocery store? Is it always the same amount? Typically not. Even when we need clothes or dine out, our medical costs, recreation, all of those things don't have a set dollar figure. So they are variable and they can change every month. If you are someone that uses an ATM, you get cash out. That can be especially difficult to track if you don't keep your receipts. So if that's you, hold on to your receipts. And I'm not saying this is a forever thing. This is just during that 3 to 4 months of tracking that you're trying to do to establish a baseline, if you will, for your spending habits. Now, can you account for how much of your cash went to some of these items in the past few months? See anything in particular that might be a sieve to your current money management plan or financial success plan? Vending machines, yes. GameStop shopping is listed, okay. Well, everything you spend money on should be listed in your tracking, at least towards the beginning, because you might choose to change your habits, but we want to basically assume your habits aren't going to change. You just want to hone them, right? Entertainment is a big one. So let's move forward. After a month of tracking, that's just 1 month. What you're going to want to do is put all the expenses, both your recurring bills and your spending receipts, into categories. That's when it's time to record your findings. And of course, that'll continue in the next 2 months as well. Whether you're using a paper or electronic spreadsheet, Quicken, what have you, first you're going to list your recurring monthly expenses. That's going to include your loan payments, insurance, rent or mortgage, utilities, those things. Then you're going to include your quarterly and annual expenses. Maybe your property tax or water or insurance falls into that category. Again, you take your annual expenses and divide by 12. Typically, do account for when that is due because you want to be able to make the payment on time, right? And we are tracking to stay out of the red and create what I call a cash cushion. So do you notice anything in particular about this particular person's expenses? What are they spending a lot of money on? Maybe easy place to sort of nip and tuck a little so they stay out of the red.
Credit card.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And it doesn't look like they are a big fan of staying home unless they are doing a lot of what you were saying before, the GameStop shopping. You can do that anywhere. But ultimately, entertainment and credit cards will get you in trouble if you don't keep them in check, right? And so what do you think if this were you, you immediately start to see, right, places where you're spending money, maybe even more money than you thought. That's where you compare and prepare for the shock. Because even if you're spending less than your income, You still have financial goals that you'd like to reach, and a plan will help you get there faster. The shock can be a motivator. Now, what are the results of your comparison? Are you spending less or more than you make? If it's more, then you really need to control spending in managing your financial success plan. But even when you're spending less, if you're not leaving yourself enough cushion for when life happens, that could also mean disaster. So make sure you've got cushion. Now, once you've tracked your spending for 3 months, you can determine where you can cut spending. And yes, you can cut your expenses. 2 vending machine trips a day is about $50 a month. Now, we had one of our participants mention vending. So what are some alternatives? Well, we can save $3 to $4 each day just by taking our lunch rather than going out for lunch, which is about $90 a month. Giving up vending machines, put a value pack of snacks in your desk drawer or in the trunk of your car, along with a case of water. Do we really need to spend $5 on a cup of coffee at Starbucks? Well, maybe if that's our thing, but every day, twice a day for Starbucks every month is $300. And I have a friend who is an at least twice a day Starbucks coffee drinker. So food for thought. We spend this without even thinking. Now, change is uncomfortable at best. So cutting our spending may be painful even, but it doesn't have to stay that way. If we communicate with those and we share a home or even money, everyone has to be on the same page. For example, you might say, because there's 3 people in my family, with all 3 of us committing to packing a lunch on Mondays and Wednesdays, we will save at least $50 a week. That can go into a vacation fund. Are we feeling we can do that? Now, if that was you saying that to your family, do you think they would agree that we could do it? Yeah. And if you already bring your lunch 2 days a week, why not 3? Why not 4? You can build on it if you see a need or a place where you can start cutting expenses and saving for what's important to you. Now, is it worth it? And how do we know? Well, this example shows the cost of lunch being from $4 to $15, averaging about $10 a day. The blog goes on to say that brown bagging it is $2 to $6 a day, is $2 to $6 a day. So going with an average brown bag cost of $4 a day, that's 60% savings over eating out. If we went all 5 days a week, $30 a week, $120 a month, that's almost $1,500 a year. There's definitely room in our habits, isn't there? Just thinking about lunch. So realistically, we can start packing your lunch once a week. If that's not your habit, Wendy, that's okay. But once a week, your average savings is $312 a year just for you. You can look at that as a raise you're giving yourself. So for a family of 3 like mine, that would be $936 a year. And so you can realistically give yourself huge dividends in your budget or spending plan. Now, these are some examples of the average cost of these expenses. 1 pack of cigarettes per day in 2018, and we'll just use that because that's what I have figures on, okay? It may have adjusted a little with inflation, but the average cost of a pack of cigarettes was $5.51. A pack a day for a year is $2,011.15. If you don't want to give up a guilty pleasure, then consider saving by cutting back rather than cutting off, right? So if you're a smoker, maybe half a pack. That's still over $1,000 a year savings. Does that make sense? If these habits are all of our guilty pleasures, then look how much that adds up to. It's huge. Now, step 10 is to allocate funds for your most important expense. That is savings. You want to pay yourself first by putting money into a savings as an expense. And the easiest way to do this is through direct deposit or automatic transfer. I know you have that option, so hopefully you're taking advantage of it and moving money into a savings. If you save what you have left over, you won't save anything. If you don't have a fallback savings account for emergencies, opportunities, and retirement, your spending plan is destined to fail. That's because life happens and we know it, right? Have you had to replace a college student's laptop? Had a flat tire? A sickness? Who could plan for a pandemic? Now we've got a few questions. Is it smart to save while still paying bills off? Yes, it is. Andre Williams is our in-house financial advisor for Summit Credit Union. Andre, perhaps you could speak more to this topic for us.
Yeah, I know step 10, I do think it's the most important step because by doing these things, we're keeping ourselves out of a hole. Once you're in a hole, it's very difficult to get out of it, and then you're never able to save properly. So if you're able to build up an emergency fund, save first, start putting money away into your retirement plan. Here's a question from Jennifer. How much should you have in an emergency fund? You should have 3 to 6 months worth of income if possible. But enough that you feel like, if your car breaks down, or you need to replace your air conditioning unit or something like that, you're not going to your credit card. That's what makes things really difficult. So if you have that 3 to 6 months worth of income saved in your savings account, it makes life a lot easier because that's where you go to first. So I think it's extremely important to have an emergency fund built up if possible. And again, saving first. So if your retirement plan is matching 6%, put that 6% away first, and then it's out of sight, out of mind. We all know if we have money coming into our under our checking account and we don't have a plan for where it's going to, then it's going to get spent somewhere. So if you first say, all right, well, I'm going to take $100 a month, put it in my emergency fund, or I'm going to take 6% of my paycheck, put it into my retirement plan. If you do that first and you get used to it, it's just like another bill. So then you find a way to make everything else work as far as having money for your utilities and groceries and things like that. That way, you're saving first, so you have money for retirement when it comes. Then if you do have a little bit extra, you don't have to worry about spending it on that TV you wanted or the vacation you wanted to do, because you've already put your money away for the other important things, and you have money set aside for emergency. So again, you're not finding yourself swiping the credit card, and then you have an added expense on top of the expenses that you already have, which makes it almost impossible to save properly.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, if you think of more questions, we certainly can address those at any time. Thank you for being available, Andre, to all of our business partner
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yes. Now, step 11 is where we develop our spending plan and actually set spending limits. Once you determine your income, you've tracked your expenses for that 3 to 4 months time frame, you've determined where to cut expenses, then you begin to allocate set dollar amounts for those variable things we spend money on, groceries, recreation, dining out, all of that. And then finally, in step 12, we review our plan and adjust as needed so that we can stay on the path to financial success. We continue to track our spending, every penny, to make sure that the spending plan that you've worked so hard to set up will actually work. I'm sorry, I went too far. There we go. Now, when you need to make necessary adjustments to the spending plan, you simply reallocate funds. If you're getting more money now because you've gotten a raise, that'll give you a little room there. But if you realize maybe packing a lunch once a week isn't enough, maybe we really need to pack it 2 or 3 times a week now. Those are the kind of things that you can do to reallocate. So you take from your lunch budget and you put that money towards a bill or something that's necessary as well. That's where you find it. And you can't find it if you're not tracking it. And what's in front of you is so easy to see when you use that spreadsheet or Quicken, something like that, that's got everything, visually easy to compare. Now, all the steps are together in our 12-step plan. This is really not meant to sound like AA, but ultimately it does help us to appreciate that it's a process. So I want to introduce one other poll for you. And it is, oops, excuse me. Hit something in error. There we go. Poll. It introduces 3 questions. So do scroll down. The first question is, which step is most important? Which step is the easiest? And then which step is the hardest? Does everyone see the poll? Okay, so we've had all 4 of you participate in this. We're going to end the poll and share the results. I will say 2 of you got the first one correct. Commitment is our most important step. Remember, if we don't either get commitment from ourselves, buy-in from ourselves, we've got to get it from those we share money with, our family, partners, whomever. That sometimes even includes people that we don't live with or don't live with us, like a aging parent, or maybe even a child that doesn't live with us. The second question, which is the easiest, that is without a doubt evaluating income. And that's because we should have our stubs, right? Our electronic or physical pay stubs available so we can literally see how all the income's coming in. The exception to that is if you happen to get paid cash somewhere for odd jobs. And which is the hardest? You all 4 said commitment. No, commitment's the most important, but the hardest is tracking. Tracking is the most difficult. That's assuming you haven't been able to account for every penny up to now. Either way, we want you to feel confident that you can tackle these 12 steps and that you can prioritize your money, because despite what some people say, they say that the IRS cares most about your money. I happen to know that you care most about your money because it's your money. That said, I want to thank you for your time and attention. I want you to feel confident that you can reach out and ask me questions about budgeting, money management, developing a success plan. Andre as well is a wonderful resource to you. You do not have to be a member to take advantage of him. And I've got his number. He can put it in the chat if you would like, Andre, but I will say it out loud for those of you that might not be able to see it. It's 919-247-0969. You're welcome, Christina. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got at least one thing. I will say, I'm going to back up my screen for you. If you want to take a screenshot here, you're welcome to. I'd be happy to send you a PDF or JPEG formatted version of this as well if you would like to email me. Just so it can be part of your visual commitment, part of what's going to help you reach your goals. Any questions before we sign off? Thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate you. We try to keep it short and sweet today, but we want to make sure everyone gets their questions answered if need be. All right, Andre, thank you for being a resource for us, and all of you have a fabulous day.